Hello, welcome everyone. Ed Zimbardi here, and today I'm going to be interviewing Brian Martinez from NuView Trust. We've got lots of questions. I know we'll have some questions live. I know Brian has some information that he wants to deliver as well, and this will be placed in the Facebook group. So, Brian, I'm a let's get right to the punch kind of guy. So, for starters, tell us a little bit about yourself, what your position is at NuView, maybe a brief overview of NuView. And then I know you have some stuff that you want to share, I guess, first, if you want to do that. And then I've got some questions. And I know the people that are on here will have some questions too. How's that sound?
Yeah, that definitely sounds good.
Welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Ed. I
Yeah.
had the pleasure of meeting Ed in person. He came to our office and we got to meet a few weeks ago, and we've been grinding to, get this on our platform and give clients the ability to be able to trade their Forex as well as get into the crypto market. So I appreciate you meeting with me, Ed, and us, getting this going. A few things about myself. I've been with NuView Trust for 3 years now. Today's actually my 3-year anniversary.
Wow.
So I'm a senior IRA specialist. I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, but I've been in the Central Florida area for the past 16 years.
Awesome. And have you been in the financial space prior to NuView?
Actually, no. And prior to NuView, I was not in the financial space other than, doing trades of my own through the stock market. That was the only experience I had. I learned about NuView when I was working at my previous company. One of our members was an employee of NuView and started telling me all about NuView and told me about the free classes that they offered. And that's how I ended up finding out about it. I joined some of the classes. I learned I had an IRA. I didn't know I could buy things that are called alternative assets in my IRA. I thought I was only limited to the stock market. And then there happened to be an opening and I became passionate about, what I can do with my IRA, and I joined the team.
That's awesome. Now, is NuView across the country, or is it just right there in Orlando?
So we have 2 offices, one in South Dakota and then one in Central Florida. It's right outside of Orlando. We're in Longwood, Florida. But we have clients all over the United States, and we have clients all over the world, actually. There's lots of clients that are in the military or they work, overseas, but they have IRAs and they use those IRAs to self-direct as well.
That's awesome. Well, I'm really excited about this time that we have together because there's a lot of people who have IRAs that probably aren't real happy with the performance of their IRAs. And there's a lot of people who probably need to have an IRA and just need some education, which I know you're going to talk a little bit about that. And then I don't want to forget our people from overseas. I've got people on live right now that are overseas. So maybe at some point you could also share some tips on what they could go out and look for within their country to see if there's a company like a NuView Trust in their area. But I also have a specific question that it's an idea I have. And I was just wondering if maybe somebody outside the country can maybe I know foreigners can invest in the US, buy property, etc. Is it possible for them to create an LLC or something like that, and then fund it with funds from the U.S. and then set up an IRA? I don't know. Maybe you have answers to questions like that, because I know a lot of people have questions like that.
Yeah, so that's actually a tough question. There are some people that I would say maybe have worked in the United States, might have had a visa, and they didn't have a social security number. They had a different number issued to them from the IRS. And I want to say it's called a TIN number, ETIN number. That allows them to open an IRA or retirement plan if they were working for a company that allowed those options. So potentially they could have IRA funds. It's not, out of the picture to say they wouldn't have an IRA or retirement account that's in the United States. It's not often that you find that. I think I've seen it a few times. And I've also had some instances where, a beneficiary inherits an IRA, but they're not a US citizen. So now they have an IRA, they might live in like Canada or something like that. And they're allowed to self-direct that IRA into alternative assets. But other than that, every country seems to have some type of similar avenue where it's a retirement plan or something to save up. I'm not familiar with all the countries. There's so many out there, but I know Canada definitely has something similar to what the United States calls a self-directed IRA that potentially could be used to, do something similar to this type of investing.
Awesome. So I don't want to get ahead of myself with a bunch of questions I have. So why don't you cover, we had chatted a little bit on the email. You had some things you wanted to cover first, some on your agenda. And so let's cover that first. So dive right in.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks a lot for having me once again. So I'm going to go through a few slides here just to give you guys an overview of who NuView is, what we do, what our responsibilities are, and then yourself as a client, and then the different types of accounts that can be used and self-directed. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, perfect.
Yep, it's shared.
So the first disclaimer, so NuView Trust serves as the custodian. We're not financial advisors. We are not CPAs. We don't do any due diligence for the client's investments. Our clients, they come to us and they tell us what they want to do with their money, how they want to invest their money. We always suggest the clients speak with an attorney or a financial advisor before they make any investments, of course. All we are is that vehicle that allows you to hold alternative assets. Some of our responsibilities that we have are record keeping for your account. We do file some tax forms for you. The 5498, it reports to the IRS, what the fair market value of your assets are worth. And the 1099-R would report to the IRS if you've made any contributions or distributions from the IRA. So that's our primary role as the custodian of your IRA. All right. So what is a self-directed IRA? I get asked this probably daily when people ask me, what is it you do? It's one of those things not a lot of people are familiar with. Self-directed IRAs have actually been around since the 1970s. It's like any other IRA. The only difference between a self-directed IRA and an IRA that you might be familiar with, that like a Fidelity or Charles Schwab or Vanguard, is those IRAs are limited to the stock market. So stocks, bonds, mutual funds. In a self-directed IRA, you're allowed to diversify your portfolio into alternative assets. Some of the most common things would be like, real estate, private lending, tax liens, mortgage notes, investing in, private placements, pre-IPOs, anything that's not publicly traded, potentially we can hold. All right, so some of the benefits of using an IRA. The reason you would want to use an IRA, and most of our clients would rather use an IRA to buy their investments, is because it's diversifying their portfolio. That's number one. One thing I love to tell my clients is you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You want to be able to diversify your portfolio. That way, if you have some money in the stock market and it takes a little bit of a hit, well, now you have other assets, so it didn't impact you as much. But when you have all your eggs in one basket, that could be impactful, for your future, especially the closer you're getting to retirement. You might want to do things that are less risky. There's tax savings, of course. So if you're using like a pre-tax IRA, and there's a few I'm going to cover, then that's going to be tax deferred money. You don't pay taxes on that as your account grows until you start taking distributions from it. One of the most powerful accounts that most of my clients like is called a Roth IRA. The Roth IRA is going to be a post-tax account. That is where you pay taxes on your contributions to the plan, but then going forward, you can invest those contributions and that Roth is going to grow tax-free for you. And I'm going to elaborate a little further on that. But what we tell people is invest in what you're familiar with. If you're comfortable and you understand the product, then it's completely up to you. Would you rather have your money in something like the stock market that you can't control or something that you understand and can control? So I want to go through the different types of plans that can be self-directed. So number one is the traditional and the Roth IRA. These are the most common. Traditional IRAs, typically if somebody has a 401k or say a TSP or 403b from a previous employer, or they might have already retired from that employer, well, those typically are pre-taxed accounts. And if they wanted to move any of those funds to an IRA, it's usually deposited into a traditional IRA. Any post-tax contributions or post-tax money in those accounts would have to go into a Roth IRA. These are the contribution limits for those accounts. It's only $6,000 a year that you can contribute to these plans. If you are over the age of 50, there's an additional $1,000 you can contribute to a Roth or a traditional IRA. And then there's some other plans called employer plans. These are pretty common as well. These have higher contributions than you would see in your traditional and your Roth IRA. So number one is called a solo QRP. This plan is limited for only people that are self-employed with no employees at any of their businesses. And it allows you to contribute up to $58,000 a year. If you're over the age of 50, there's an additional $6,500 you can contribute to that plan. So this is a great plan for anyone listening that's self-employed. There's a lot to learn in there, but we have a landing page dedicated to it with all the educational resources to teach you more about the solo QRP, also known as a solo 401k or a solo K. And then you have your SEP IRA. That's pretty common for self-employed individuals as well. Up to $58,000 can be contributed. That $58,000, the way to make the contribution to the SEP IRA is it's a 25% match of your self-employed earned income, but it cannot exceed $58,000. So it's great for people that are high earners and want to be able to put some money away into a tax-deferred vehicle. A SEP IRA is tax-deferred just like the traditional IRA. And there's no catch-up contribution, so that additional $6,500 that's available in the solo QRP plan, it's not available in the SEP IRA, but $58,000 is still a great amount of money to be able to contribute to an IRA, especially if you don't have a current IRA and you are self-employed. And then you have your simple IRA. This is great for like small businesses. You can contribute up to $13,000. And if you're over the age of 50, an additional $3,000 to this plan. If you do have employees in your business, then there is a mandatory 3% match. So for any contributions that your employees make, you would match up to 3%. And the great thing about these plans and all these IRAs is that they can be self-directed. The next plans most people don't realize can be self-directed. These we like to call our bolt-on accounts. An education savings account, that's exactly what it is. It's a college fund for your children or grandchildren. You can contribute up to $2,000 a year to this plan. And I have to apologize because those are switched around. It's only $2,000 a year. It's not tax deductible, but it can be self-directed. If there's no catch-up contribution either. It's only $2,000 a year with that plan. The education savings account is one of those things that, I wish my parents had. For me, when I went to college, I had no savings. I'm paying out of pocket, and having a plan like that would have been, super beneficial for myself while I was in college. And then a health savings account can be self-directed as well. With the health savings account, you have to have a high deductible healthcare plan, and you can make contributions to the plan. The maximum is $7,200 if it's a family plan. If you're only contributing to yourself, it's only $3,600. But the cool thing, like I said, is this money can be invested. Most people think the health savings accounts have to be used for your medical expenses right away, but that's not true. You can accumulate those medical expenses, save those receipts, those invoices from the doctors, pay out of pocket if you want to, invest that money, let it grow. And then when you're ready, you can cash in all those receipts. The cool thing about the health savings account is that it's tax-free going in and it's tax-free coming out. So it's a little bit more powerful than a Roth IRA. So these are the plans that can be self-directed.
Now, all those are annual contributions for each year, or is it just one time?
They're each year, annual contribution that you can make to the plan.
Awesome.
As long as it's earned income. It does have to be earned income. If you're not working and you're already retired, you wouldn't be able to make a contribution unless there's some type of earned income.
Okay.
So I want to cover the application because this is where we probably get the most questions. And I want to make sure we simplify the process for all the viewers and everyone in Ed's group. So I'm going to go through the application here in some important sections. This is our self-directed IRA application. It's not the health savings account application, but it is similar. It's not the education savings account. It's not the solo 401k plan. This is just for the IRAs. So this first section is pretty basic. It's all your basic information, who you are, when you were born, your social security number, what was your current most recent occupation and title, and your marshal status. We just need to know this information for our records and compliance reasons. And then how are you referred to NuView? And I have a great surprise for you at the end. Number 2 is your notifications. How do you want to receive your statements? Do you want to receive them online? If not, there's a $10 annual fee and we'll mail it to you. We do like to know where people came from, and there is a promo code section here, which I will be sharing with you at the end of the presentation. Next section, this is important as well. What type of an account is it you want to establish? Is it a traditional IRA, a Roth, a SEP, or a simple IRA, or are you using a beneficiary or inherited IRA? So we need to know that. And then account funding. How are you contributing to the plan? Do you plan to make contributions to it? So the contributions would be what I mentioned before on the slide previously that had the, how much you can contribute to the plan each year. Then you would just select this box and put the year you're making the contribution for. Will you be transferring funds from an existing IRA? If the funds are going IRA to IRA, that's a transfer. Is it going to be a direct rollover? And I did skip this one. I'm going to go back to that. A direct rollover is if it's coming from an employer plan. So say you're moving money from a 401k, a 403b, a TSP plan, a pension, anything like that, that would be a direct rollover. So there are some differences that I'm going to cover in these. A transfer, NuView would make the request on your behalf to request the funds from your current IRA to be moved over to NuView. So you don't have to worry about that. We're going to do the work there. A direct rollover, the client is responsible to reach out to that 401k provider and let them know, I would like to do a direct rollover. And the 401k company will ask you to fill out a direct rollover form, or they might be able to do it over the phone with you. They're going to ask you, where do you want the check mailed? How much? You don't have to send the whole account, but if you want to send the whole account, you let them know. And then how do you want the check to be made out? So the check is going to be issued to NuView Trust Custodian, and then for benefit of, or capital FBO, and then your name, and then they're going to mail the check either to you or to us. Ultimately, we have to have the check so we can make that deposit. And when we get the check, there'll be a 5-day hold on it. Not often 401ks will send the funds via wire. It's usually a issued check. Now, this section right here, this rollover contribution, this is very rare. This is when you take a distribution from an IRA and you have 60 days to deposit it into another account. I don't recommend this. It's very, very rare that clients will use this as an option. We keep it as kind of a last resort because if you've taken any distributions in the past 12 months, then the whole thing would be taxable and you don't want to do that. So we don't recommend doing an indirect rollover unless you've spoken to one of us and we can ask you the right questions and make sure you don't get taxed on it. So number 5, this is the interested party designation section. If there's anyone else, typically people list their spouses. Sometimes people list their CPAs. You can put their information here. This will give them access to call NuView, ask any questions about their account, and they can also log into the client portal and they can see your statements, your tax forms, all the same things that you can see. They cannot make decisions on your behalf. We can only answer questions, but the client ultimately makes all decisions and signs all documents. The next section, this will be on the following page. This is your beneficiary page. By law, you do have to have at least one beneficiary, at least one primary beneficiary at 100%. You can have multiple primaries if you want to, as long as it adds up to 100%. And you can also list contingents. So you would select either primary or contingent. We need all of their information. And this is really important because if something were to happen to you and they inherit the account, the last thing you want is it to go to probate. That could take a long time to get the funds out of there or inherit this account. So it's important that you keep this up to date. In certain states, there is this thing called spousal consent, and the states are listed right here. This is only required if you plan on not listing your spouse as the primary beneficiary at 100%. And it's only in these states here that you need the spousal consent. So that's only if you are not listing your spouse as your primary at 100%. And then you would sign and date on this section right here. So far, so good. And it's really an easy application. We're happy to walk you through it, along the way. If you have questions, you can reach out to me directly. So our fee schedule is pretty basic. We'll have to go through that with you to explain it, but it's either $295 per asset, or you can set up your fees to be based on the value of the account. And we have a promotion, like I said. So once I go through that, I'll elaborate a little further, but you can pay your fees either by credit card. You could have your fees come out of your undirected cash. So that would be from the IRA money, or you can select only charge my credit card if no funds are available in my retirement account. And then you would sign and date. So the section's pretty self-explanatory here. So this is the fee schedule. So now you have a visual. It is either $295 per asset, or it's based on the value of the account. So it's up to you to decide which is going to save you the most money in the long run. From my conversations with Ed and some of the current clients that have already opened accounts here at NuView, they're predicting their accounts to grow pretty quickly. So they usually don't go with this option with the expectations that they're going to get some good returns, and it might jump up if they left it on this fee schedule and they would forget to switch it over to this fee schedule. So most of them are selecting option one, which is the $295 per asset. And it would only be one asset if you're only opening one account with the Forex trading or the crypto. It's still only one account. So we only charge you one asset fee. Some of the other common fees that you would see on
Brian, real quick, is that an annual fee or is it one time?
It's annual.
Annual.
They're both
Okay.
annual. It's
Got
just
it.
two options.
Okay.
Mhm. And this starts the day you make your investment. So the day the wire gets sent out from NuView into the Forex account, that's when that starts. And it'll be annually from there. Okay, so anytime you purchase or sell an asset, or in this case, open the account, there's going to be a $95 transaction fee. So we only charge fees whenever it's manpower required to process documents, do record keeping, anything like that. And we want to make sure everyone stays within compliance with the IRS. That's our main responsibility, is to do our best to make sure you're not, doing anything prohibited. There's a $50 application fee, and then any wires in or out of the account are $30. So those are the most common fees that you would see. All the other fees, like an ACH or checks, would be only $5. Most of our clients do things like real estate, so they'll see a lot more of these other miscellaneous fees. The fair market value stale dated asset fee, we only charge this as a penalty if you did not update your fair market value form. Trust me, we will reach out to you in every way possible to remind you that we need you to update that fair market value form. It's really important for us to stay within compliance as well as your custodian. So it's important for us to get that fair market value asset sheet from you annually. So we usually send those notices at the end of December, and we try to collect them up until about mid-February if possible. So yeah, that's the fee schedule. If you do close your account, we only charge 0.005% of the termination of the account. The maximum we would charge would be $250, but we're only going to charge you whatever is the lesser of the two options there to close the account. And then this is all the legal information that you want to review. It's all included in the application, but it's once you've looked that over, you just have to sign, print, and date here. And there's 2 pages on that. So I'm going to cover the transfer form because this is the most important form. This is how we get the funds into your account. And it's very basic, actually. So right here, you put your basic information. We're going to be sending this to your current IRA company. Right here is the current custodian. So where are we requesting the funds from? Is it coming from Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Merrill Lynch? We need to know who it is and your current account number with them. If you have a contact person, you can put their information here. We need their transfer department address, phone number, and the type of an account that we are requesting the funds to be moved over from. There's 2 ways that you can transfer funds. It's usually going to be cash. That's 9 out of 10 times it's cash because you're trying to buy something new or a new investment. So option 1, cash. Is it going to be complete? Are you moving the whole account, or is it going to be partial? If it is partial, we need to know the exact amount that you want them to send over to us. You can send it either check or wire. Remember, wires are $30, checks are $5. Option 2, this is in kind. This is only if you're moving existing assets from an IRA to NuView. I don't see this often unless it's like an LLC or maybe a piece of real estate. Then they're moving from a self-directed IRA to another self-directed IRA company to NuView. That would be an in-kind transfer. So I don't think anyone listening would be using this section here. Now we can make the request either standard mail or overnight mail. You would sign and date here. Now, some custodians require what's called a medallion guarantee stamp. We can do that here at NuView for you. We would set an appointment up with, her name is Barb, and she can do the stamp for you. We would have to do it via Zoom because she does have to witness, kind of like a notary. She has to witness your signature. She's going to provide you another form that you'll fill out, and then you'll have to mail us the form. We'll provide you the overnight label if you need us to. And then once we receive it, she'll stamp it for you, or you can take it to any banking institution. Just give them a heads up that you're coming in. Usually you have to have an account with them. You have to bring your most recent IRA statement with you, your ID. And then they're going to stamp it for you there. But I would make an appointment in advance and make sure that they're able to do it. Most of the time, it's like the president or vice president of that branch that can do it for you. And then you don't have to worry about this part. Acceptance of receiving custodian. This is all NuView section to fill out for you. And then the rollover form. So remember, I mentioned the differences. The transfers, NuView will initiate the movement of the money for you. The rollovers, the client initiates that on their own. Section 1 is your basic information. Same thing like the previous form. Who's the current custodian? This is a paper trail for our records of where the funds are coming from. What type of a plan is it coming from? A 401k, a pension plan, a 403b. So if it's none of these listed, you can write it here on the line. Or if it's coming from an IRA. Very rarely someone does a direct rollover from an IRA, but it is an option. And then who are you? Normally you're the plan participant, or if you inherited the account, you could be the beneficiary of the account or a non-spousal beneficiary. Are you the responsible individual? So sometimes if, say, a child inherited the account, you're the responsible individual, or your power of attorney, you might be the responsible individual. So that's rarely used unless you're one of those positions. And there's also the option of an ex-spouse account due to divorce or separation, then you would select that box. You don't need to put anything in the asset description because normally, like I said, you're moving over cash as well. But it is important here that you select direct rollover, and then we need to know the amount of money. So when we receive the check, it needs to match up pretty closely. And sometimes, if it is invested in the stocks, bonds, mutual funds, you have to liquidate. That amount might change a little bit. So just let us know to update the form if it did change. And then you sign and you date. All right. So just a few more slides and we'll be wrapping it up for you. Okay, so this is the purchase packet. The purchase packet is what you're going to fill out when you're ready to make the investment. Your account's already been opened and you've provided us the email notification that you get saying your account has been opened. The account's going to be opened, your trading account we're referring to, not the NuView account. It's going to be opened in the name of your IRA. So it's going to be titled NuView Trust Custodian FBO, which is for benefit of, and then your name. Dale Christoph, he already has done this. He's already tested it out. And you use the first name and the last name. You just kind of have to break it up to make sure it fits in there, but it will fit. We've already tested it. You just can't put any numbers in the first name and last name. That's the only thing. So you're going to leave the account number out, but you're going to put your first and last name at the end after NuView Custodian FBO John Smith. So you're going to fill that, open the account in the name of the IRA like that. You're going to get an account number. So this first section, this is your name as it appears on the account, and then your account number. This is the account information. So the firm name, the account number, and the amount you want us to send to the trading account for you. How do you want us to send it? Wire or check? And then how do you want fees to be paid out? So same thing with the fees. You can put a credit card on file. This is just if you didn't add a credit card previously and you change your mind and want to add some fees for transaction purposes, you can add the credit card here. But you also do that on the fee schedule. And that is the purchase packet. You just print, sign, and date. It's actually very short. It's one of the easiest purchase packets to complete. If you have questions, we can definitely walk you through it. So if you're listening, we are running a promotion for everyone that's part of your group. The promo code is 5050, so 50/50. And what we're going to do is we're going to waive the $50 application fee for your clients and anyone in the group. And we're also going to provide a $50 credit towards your account. So for instance, you make that first investment, that $95 transaction fee, well, it's going to knock you down to $45 for you. So we're saving everyone about $100 to get the account open, which is pretty cool. We don't do this very often, wow. But Ed, you bared with me to get this done. And I know it took a few weeks, but we finally crossed the finish line. We're ready to go. So I want to do something special for you guys.
That's awesome, man. Very nice of you. And it expires at the end of the month. Good. So people can get things set up. There's Brian's contact information. Obviously, this is on a recording, so this will stay up for a little bit of time. Brian, that was awesome. I know that people have some questions, but I have some questions too. So I want to ask you a few questions, if I may, before I let everybody else. It's kind of some clarification questions. So if a person doesn't have an IRA and they wanted to, they're getting paid, so their money's taxed, they would set up a Roth IRA, correct?
Yeah, you can definitely do that. Whatever type of IRA you want established that, well, it depends. If you're self-employed, you might want to look at the employer plans. If you're not self-employed, you're W-2, then you might want to look at a traditional or a Roth IRA. Remember, they're just taxed differently. One's tax deferred, one's tax-free, growing tax-free. So yeah, you would just fill out the application, select contribution, open that account. As long as it's earned income, then you can make the contribution by sending us a check or a wire to deposit into the account.
So if a person opened up a Roth IRA, for instance, the money's already been taxed if they're a W-2, for instance, at their job. And that money can be invested into a Forex or, crypto. And no matter how much profit is earned, it's tax-free. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's always going to grow tax-free. The only time it would be taxed is if, we see that more in real estate, if clients were using leverage for some reason, but there's no capital gains tax, so it's going to grow tax-free. Only time, like I said, is if, say, a client took a mortgage out and they use their Roth to buy that house. Well, they're going to be taxed on the mortgage portion of their profits.
Right.
So if the mortgage is 50% of the value of the property, 50% of their profit's going to be taxed. But that you won't see that in the Forex, as far as I know. But like I said, I'm not a CPA or a tax advisor.
Right.
But Roths do grow tax-free.
So then, and I'm speaking as if somebody is not 59 and a half, they have a job, they're working. Then what happens at what age is it mandatory that they start taking some disbursements? And is that any of the disbursements taxed at that time?
Yeah, so it's called an RMD, required minimum distributions. Those are they increase the age. It used to be 70, now it is 72 years old. That's when you are required to start taking a certain amount of money out of the IRA each year. But that does not apply to the Roth. That only applies to a traditional IRA or a SEP IRA. I think, actually the Roth is the only one exempt from the RMDs.
So if somebody does go the Roth direction, and they wanted to take disbursements at any time, those disbursements are tax-free. And but it's after they're of a certain age, correct?
After 59 and a half, it would be tax-free if they need to take distributions, correct. They can take the distributions completely free. If they take a distribution before 59 and a half years old, then there's going to be a penalty of 10%.
10%, okay. Now, while the money is growing tax-free, in this example, the reason we're doing this video is because everybody's looking at investing in Forex or into crypto, specifically PAMs. In this case, if they wanted to take funds out before 59 and a half and let's say purchase real estate, can they do that without getting taxed on, like if they set up another self-directed IRA for real estate and purchase a piece of property in an LLC? Is something like that, can that be done?
Yeah, 100%. You wouldn't even have to open a separate account at all. You just move the money back to your NuView custodian account, create the LLC. There's specific directions to follow to do that. Open a checking account for the LLC, and then we can move the funds from NuView into that checking account. And actually, you could diversify your portfolio however you want to. The way this whole connection happened was because one of our clients did that. I created an LLC, and he opened his Forex trading, and I think he's buying some crypto now as well. And he's a NuView client, and that's how he's part of your group. So that's how we connected, because he did the LLC option. So the reason I didn't even know about this is because he did it through the LLC. So we didn't know that that's the investment that he made with his IRA money. What we tried to do is avoid the LLC creation to save everyone money and hassle of creating the LLC. But if you have, desires to do other things like diversify your portfolio in real estate or private lending or mortgage notes, and you want to choose the LLC option, that's always something you can do. It's called checkbook control, actually.
Okay. Yeah, that was Buck Williams.
Yeah.
So just to give people to expand their mind of what's possible, you also talked about lending. So if, as you're in this case, your PAM account is growing through, let's say, an IRA, a Roth IRA, and you have a family member, you have kids, grandkids, and you wanted to help them out, your IRA can be a bank, correct? They could purchase that piece of property and be the bank where they're receiving payments from their family member, and it's like they're holding the mortgage, and that money can go right back into their IRA. Is that a possibility?
It was very close, but there are some disqualified parties that you cannot do business with or transactions with. The disqualified parties are the IRA owner, their spouse, and then both the IRA owner and their spouse's parents and grandparents, and their children and their grandchildren, and spouses of their children and grandchildren. So the reason why these are disqualified parties is because they're usually the direct beneficiaries of the IRA. You can't do any self-dealing. You can't invest into those disqualified parties' businesses that they own majority shares in. You can't do private lending with them. If you own a piece of real estate in the IRA, they can't be the ones that are living there or renting it or putting in a sweat equity into the property. It's all got to be a passive investment. Now, there are other family members that you could do something like that with: brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins. So any branches of the family tree are okay. We don't recommend doing business with family members because there tend to be sweetheart deals that are done, and the IRS frowns upon that.
Right.
You want to treat everyone fairly and make sure your IRA is getting, the maximum benefit from whatever the transaction is.
Okay. So glad you clarified that. So there is ways of doing certain things in purchasing real estate, because a lot of people, can you purchase a property for yourself?
No, you cannot. Not with your IRA. So this is what some clients will do. I get a lot of clients that like to buy offshore property. They might buy something like Costa Rica, and eventually they might retire and want to live on that property or be able to use that property. The only way to do that is you take it as a distribution. This means sometimes you might have to pay the taxes on the deal unless it was a Roth IRA. You take it as a distribution, and then it's no longer held in the IRA. You own it personally. That's the only way that you can live on the property.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Questions. And Larry, I want to start with you because I know you had a question that you sent me that was quite lengthy. And I want to make sure your personal question gets answered. So Larry, can you unmute and talk at this time? All right. Doesn't seem like he can. So I'm going to read you his question here. Brian. He says if he's a single 73-year-old male, no dependents, he does have a traditional IRA and rolled over into a TD Ameritrade account 4 years ago to trade with until last year. And it has just remained idle since then. And now he wants to roll over or transfer some of those funds into like the PAM, do Forex or crypto. Can that be done? Is his question.
Yeah, 100%. It's an IRA. It's traditional. You'd open the same type of IRA here at NuView. Remember, just taking consideration that you are over 72 years old. So at the end of the year, you might have to liquidate some of that, or if you leave some money at that TD account, you have adequate funds to take that required minimum distribution at the end of the year. Just that's the only thing I would caution you, is just to make sure you have some type of way of liquidating if you needed to. But yeah, it's very simple. You fill out the application, fill out the transfer form. Make sure it's already in cash and available to be transferred. You don't want to invest it in stocks, bonds, or mutual funds when we make the request, because they'll reject the transfer request and then we'll kind of have to start all over again. So then we make the request, and typically takes 7 to 10 business days to move funds over to NuView. While we're waiting for the funds to be transferred, you can have your PAM account set up and then fill out the purchase packet, and then we can get those funds from NuView into that account, where now you can go ahead and start buying the crypto or the Forex.
All right. He continues on and says, should the funds in his TD Ameritrade account be rolled over back into the original IRA account first, or can the funds be rolled over and transferred from either both locations into his Forex broker account?
It has to be moved to NuView first. You don't have to move it back to its original location or anything like that. Just leave it where it's at. That's who will request the funds to be moved over from.
All right. Now he says, based on his age of 73, he doesn't want to open a Kia or a Roth and wait 5 years to access the funds if he needs some funds. What options does he have in setting up a self-directed IRA, if that would be the correct option, to be able to access the funds prior to the 5-year limit with a Kia or a Roth?
I mean, you don't have to do a Roth. That's completely your decision. So you could leave it in a traditional IRA. It can still be self-directed and stay in a traditional IRA. That doesn't really change anything. Because you're 73 doesn't mean you have to stop investing your money either. You want to keep your money working for you.
Okay. He says, if I already have more than one Forex account, let's say he wants, let's say he has 3, can all 3 be under or converted over to self-directed IRA umbrella, or does he have to do each individual separate IRA?
The IRA is separate. I'm assuming that those original accounts you opened are not in a retirement plan. You opened those and purchased the assets with cash. You can't combine that with the IRA. It has to remain separate. So your IRA is going to have its own account, and it's also not going to be in your name. It's going to be in the name of the IRA. So NuView, trust, custodian, for benefit of, and then your name. So that's the difference. That's how you'll be able to see the difference, when you're logging into the app or on the platform. So yeah, it cannot be combined.
All right. And he says, if there is somebody significant that he'd like to leave one account to when he passes away, can a trust be set up for that one account? And what would the fee be if he wanted to do that?
Yeah. So if you already have a trust created, or at some point create a trust, that beneficiary page that I showed you, you can put the trust as the beneficiary. So that's perfectly fine. But by law, we have to have somebody that's going to inherit it. We can't wait for you to create the trust. It either needs to be created when you open the account, or you need to list an actual person until you create the trust, and then you can always revise the beneficiary page. But yes, it can be benefited to a trust.
All right. He says, if I do not set up a Kia or Roth and go with a self-directed IRA, is the tax savings or the advantage the same?
It's not the same. The traditional IRA is it's going to be tax deferred. So every year, and you should know because you're 73 now. So, well, 2020, there was no RMDs. So I think you got lucky that year. But this year, there will be RMDs. So it might be your first year taking a required minimum distribution. So because of that, it's just tax deferred. You pay the taxes on whatever you take out, and it's based on what your tax bracket is that year. So if you're retired, you're 73, you're probably at the lowest tax bracket. So that's what you're going to pay when you take that amount. So say you have to take $10,000 out this year. That's what you're going to pay the taxes on. Versus a Roth, if I took $10,000 out of my Roth, well, I don't pay any taxes on it. So it is taxed differently.
All right. He says, what is the annual limit to roll over from one IRA, like where he has now, into something like what you guys can set up for him?
You can move the whole account. There's not a limit. You can do as many transfers as you like. There's no limit. If you wanted to start off with maybe a smaller account, like 10,000, and later on you see it's performing, you want to move 30,000 more, you can do that anytime.
All right. His last question is there a maximum dollar amount that he can withdraw each year, starting with the second year, like the mandatory annual age of 72 and a half, or is it unlimited?
Yeah, so the required minimum is the minimum you have to take out. You can take out as much as you want to. Now, if you plan on still investing your money, I don't advise taking out unless you really have to take it out for, medical expenses or living, things like that. That's what retirement accounts for. But it's completely your decision. There is no maximum limits. You can take out as much as you need to when you need to. Just remember, you have a traditional IRA. So if you take out $100,000 from it, you're going to pay taxes on that $100,000 versus if you did that in a Roth, you wouldn't pay taxes on it.
All right. That was all of Larry's questions, unless Larry, you have
great questions, Larry. I appreciate those.
Yeah, a couple things. The under Roth, could I do a Roth? And if I do, don't I have to wait 5 years before I can withdraw out of it?
There is a 5-year rule with the Roths, correct? Once you convert it to a Roth, though, then you don't have the RMDs anymore. As soon as you convert it. Now you can still invest it. It'll still grow tax-free. You just can't take those distributions until after the 5 years if you needed to.
Yeah, at age 73, waiting 5.5 years or so before I can touch it.
Right.
It's one thing I want to clear up that Ed read. Let's say currently I have 2 or 3 accounts with in a PAM right now, not an IRA, just trading accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Can all 3 of those be combined in this one IRA, a self-directed IRA, or each one has to be a separate self-directed IRA?
So you cannot combine your IRA money with your cash. That's not a good thing to do. You can't commingle those things because your IRA is a retirement account. It's your money when you take the distributions, basically. Your cash account, it's just your cash. So you know what I mean? It's not going to grow tax deferred. You're going to pay taxes when you take the money out of there. I'm sure there's a capital gains tax. So that's the difference. So it can't be combined. Now, as far as having those 3 accounts with cash right now, potentially those could probably be combined. Ed, can you answer that?
Yeah, they certainly can. But I think what he's getting at, or at least my question that stems from what he's asking, is the annual contributions that can be made into your IRA. Couldn't that money be money that's currently, whether it's in his checking account or in a trading account, couldn't that money be put into the IRA as long as it doesn't exceed the annual contribution?
If it's earned income, it can be contributed, but 73 years old, you're probably not working right now, so you might not have earned income. There's a difference in passive income and earned income. So I'll give you an example that I usually give people. Say I have a rental property and I have renters that pay me rent every month. That's not earned income. That's considered passive income. So I cannot contribute that to an IRA. Okay. But say that I'm a real estate agent and I sold a piece of property and I made commission from that sale of the property. That would be considered earned income.
So let's just say I'm going back to this 3 account concept. Let's say so far, I open up 3 accounts in the last 3 months with Ed through Pam. And let's just say one has $1,000, one has $3,000, and one has $5,000. Can those 3 accounts, can the funds in those 3 accounts be turned into a self-directed IRA?
No. And that's just based on your specific position, I would say, because I know a lot more that, you're 73, you're retired already. You've already opened these accounts. You've been trading with cash. The only way to add it to a self-directed IRA is if it's made as a contribution. So it'd have to come from an existing IRA for you or a previous employer plan. Like if you have an old 401k or 403b or anything like that, that would be the only option right now for you. Now, if I had somebody that was, 50 years old that did the same thing and they're still working, well, they could potentially liquidate it to cash and then contribute it to the IRA. And that would be a contribution to the IRA. But as long as they stay within the contribution limits. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm still working.
Oh, you are still working? Well, yeah, if you're still working, then you can do that for sure.
Now, what about in your example, somebody who is younger, using 50 years old, 40 years old, doesn't matter, and they have a current trading account with the broker, could they take those funds and move them into a Roth IRA, since that money was already tax money that they've earned and they use to contribute into their trading account? Could they do the maximum contribution into a Roth?
Yeah, definitely. There are some income limits with the Roth to be able to contribute it to it. So if you and your spouse combined exceed $198,000 earned income, you cannot contribute to a Roth. If you're below that, then you can contribute to the Roth at the maximum.
Okay. Robert, I think that was your question I saw there in the chat. Dale, you've put some questions in there. I think a couple of them have been answered, but any of the questions not been answered, Dale?
Hey, Dale.
Dale still
Yeah,
there?
I'm still here.
Okay.
No, my question, those were early questions. Those were more comments to add to what you guys were discussing at the time. The first one was in regards to the HSA, the health savings account. That just a heads up for people, when you hit 66 and are forced to sign up for Medicare, regardless of what level of Medicare you sign up for, you cannot contribute to your HSA anymore after that point. So if you're younger than 66, make an HSA, make it grow, put as much as you can into it and make it grow as much as you can, because it's tax deferred going in and it's tax exempt coming out. It's a great account. And you can, I believe you can actually use that money for previous medical situations or medical costs. It's not just that immediate medical costs. You'll have to double check me on that, because I'm not sure how far back you can go, but it's a good source of tax-free money. And if you've been able to make it grow big, then you don't need other insurances, such as the extended care type of insurances and whatever else. So it's a very powerful account, but you have to be aware that once you hit 66, you can't contribute anymore. So I'm sort of stuck because I'm 68 and a half. The other comment I made was, I was adding to that, to what Larry was asking, as far as the your current PAM accounts are taxable accounts. So as you guys already mentioned and said, to contribute, to put that into an IRA of any type, it has to be considered a contribution. You can't roll it over. It's a taxable account. So it's sort of like, unless you close the account or take money out and use it as a contribution. And the other one was, you only need one IRA of any type, and you can make multiple investments. So with one IRA, you can have a Forex PAM investment, and you can have a crypto PAM investment, and you can go out and invest in gold. You can go out and invest in real estate or any of the allowed investment types. You only need the one IRA. You don't need to set up multiples like I did. I did it for test purposes and to help work through the process so that we could make sure we didn't have any problems or anything. And it was just my personal preference.
So just to clarify, you set up one IRA with the maximum contribution. You can take half of that contribution in your IRA and put it into what we call it at the broker is the regular Forex PAM, and the other half can go into the crypto PAM. You don't have to set up two separate IRAs.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Robert has a question here. Can he add funds each month to his NuView IRA? And what are the fees to that? So if somebody has a maximum contribution they can do of, let's say, $6,000, but they don't have all $6,000 now, and they just wanted to do regular contributions as they get paid, what would be the fees for that type of transaction?
If you're moving the money at multiple times from NuView into the brokerage account, that's going to be a $95 transaction fee every time you do that. So I would probably encourage you can make the deposits monthly if you want to, but I wouldn't move it all to the brokerage until you're ready to do it all at one time. That'll save you the transaction fee every time of $95. But it's really up to you. If you don't mind paying the $95 and you want to do a little bit at a time, that's completely your decision.
Okay. That answers that one. Anybody else have questions for Brian? I want to be respectful of his time. We're getting close to an hour. So,
and
yes.
simple question that I asked, since I saw that special deal, Brian, that's wonderful. Is it going to be retroactively applied to me since I was your guinea pig?
You could take that up with him offline.
100%, Dale. I'm going to
Yeah.
make sure you get the credit as well.
Brian, did I hear this is only through the end of the month, August, or end of the month, September?
I will extend it through the end of the month. Let's do this. We'll talk about it in September and see if I can extend it further than that. But what I was hoping is Ed is going to put this out on the group out this weekend. And then Monday and Tuesday, I'm completely available for you guys to help you get your accounts open. I know there's quite a few that have already reached out. There's a few that have already started their applications, a few that have their accounts open. They were just kind of waiting for us to get some paperwork created for this type of investment that we didn't previously have. But now that we have it created, it's going to be a lot smoother. And I mean, the purchase pack is so simple to fill out that it should be a no-brainer. And I think people the application is probably going to be the only thing that's going to take a little while. But Ed, how soon can you put this posted to the group page?
Yeah, this is going to go up here before the end of the day today.
Beautiful.
Go into the group. So everybody who's watching this recording, make sure you look at what the deadline is. I would imagine that Brian's the kind of guy that if you reach out to him here before the end of the month, and it takes a few days even after that to get everything set up, that he'll honor it. But I think you got to at least contact him here before the end of the month. And if you're watching this video and it is September, then don't worry about the reduction that he's offering here. Still get this set up, because that's the whole purpose of this video, is to put it in the group. There's going to be a lot of new people that come on board. There's going to be people who are watching this live right now who are going to refer people into the broker's PAM, and probably have a good be a good reason why they need to set up an IRA and reach out to Brian. So I want to impress upon everyone to reach out to Brian, even if you just have questions and you're not ready before the end of the month, just to get yourself prepared to do it. And even if it is, 30 days from now, reach out to Brian, get your questions answered. Brian and one of his counterparts there that I met, what was his name? Vince?
Yeah. Vince is the manager for the transactions department. So they're the ones that will process the purchase packet and get the funds from the NuView account into the brokerage account.
So when I went out and met with both of them, with Buck, great guys, answered all of our questions, gave us whatever time we needed. They also want to learn more about what we're doing. So we're all here to help. And I believe this is a great vehicle, depending on what your situation is, how old you are, whether you have an IRA, don't have an IRA. Diversifying your portfolio is important. So even if you do have a regular PAM set up for Forex, and even if you have one for crypto right now, diversifying and taking some funds based on your age and putting it into an IRA could be an additional smart investment, depending on your tax situation. You may want to consider that too. So if your questions weren't answered here because you're watching this recording, reach out to Brian. I'm sure he'll give you the time and answer your questions. Right, Brian?
Oh, for sure. 100%. And I'm not by myself. I have a team under me that would be happy to assist as well. So if I am not available, and I'm assuming a lot of people will be calling, I have plenty of other people that can help me with the accounts. And then the last thing, I will check my emails throughout the weekend. So just shoot me an email. Best way to reach me is bmartinez@nuviewtrust.com. If you call my direct number, you can leave me a voicemail and I can get right back to you as well.
Awesome. Now I know that primarily we set this up so that you can do investing into Forex as well as crypto, but there are other things that you can purchase. A few of those items were mentioned here. And if you have additional questions of what you can diversify yourself with, get with Brian, because this could be a good contact for you working with NuView and doing other things outside of what we're doing here with the PAM. I'm a big proponent of utilizing the legal tax code as best possible to your advantage. And even though Brian and NuView, they're not tax advisors, they do have experience. They can guide you in what they're allowed to guide you into. And that could be a lot more than what you know now. See, I'm a big proponent of, you don't know what you don't know, but once you know it, you better take action on it. Otherwise, you leave a lot of money on the table when you don't need to be doing that, right?
I agree.
So
100%.
any final thoughts, Brian?
No, even if you get your account open, you have up to 90 days to fund the account. So if you don't have all the funds to make the contribution now, that's okay. We can at least get that first step set up for you. So reach out to me. I'm happy to talk. Every situation is different and unique. So having those one-on-one consultations, I want to make sure you can maximize on those and speak to myself or someone on my team.
All right. Any final questions from anyone that's watching here live before we wrap this up for Brian?
Yeah, I got one question for Brian.
Go
Can
ahead,
you hear me?
Robert.
Okay.
Yep.
I know you've gone over this before, but I have two not Roth accounts, but I have two PAM accounts right now. Can I put both of those in one account under the NuView Roth IRA?
So right now it's invested. The money's invested. Are you currently working?
Yes. I'm 78 and I'm still working. So.
Wow. Okay. So if you're currently working, you can make contributions to a Roth, but remember there's a 5-year rule with the Roth. So you won't be able to access those funds for the first 5 years. You can still invest them and it'll grow tax-free for you. So just take that in consideration when you're making the contributions.
Okay. Now I helped some other people open up some 2 other PAM accounts. And what I want to do is I did before want to contribute every month to their accounts, an extra $100 every month. That's not a good idea if it's in a Roth. If they happen to open a Roth, because it's going to cost $95, it's going to net $5 actually by the time I get done, right?
Yeah, don't do that. That's what I was saying before. Try to do it all at once if you can do that. That would probably be the best scenario. What some people will do is, once they file their taxes and they get their returns, they use that and they contribute it to their IRAs.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That helps. Oh, just one other quick question. Let's say I were to contribute $1,000 every month. So there's a $95 fee, but now to get that money into the Roth IRA, is there an additional fee for the check or the wire or Zelle, however you do it?
$30 for wires.
$30.
Yeah,
so
I don't think
$30. It's $30 plus the 95 then.
Yes.
Okay.
Unless there's an ACH option. If there's an ACH option, it's free.
I have no idea what that is.
Ed, is there an option for ACH? Do you know?
There isn't at this time.
Okay. So yeah, there'll be a $30 wire fee.
Okay.
Dale, you got that too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm already aware of that. You and I have gone over the fees before, and I'm fully aware of your fees and the IMGFX's fees. And when we go into the crypto, there's going to be a fee to change my dollars into crypto. I'm getting feed to death, but hopefully we're going to make enough money that it won't matter.
I like to hear that.
That's right.
Awesome.
All right, guys.
Thank you so much for having me, Ed.
You got it. And then for those of you who are outside of the United States and you have any additional questions, if you're catching this late, you can always contact Brian. He might give you a tip or two of what to look for inside your country. So you can get set up inside your country. There's some rare occasions how you can make some investments in the United States, but that he covered earlier. So go back and watch the beginning of this recording. But I want to encourage each and every one of you who are in the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, that we have lots and lots of you here in the group to explore options. Or we even have other people throughout Europe too. I don't want to forget our big group in the Netherlands. Just explore your options and see what you can do, because it's always good to learn how you can maximize the legal tax code to your advantage. And most of the time, the most wealthy people, they pay a lot of money for people to give them tax advice, legal tax advice, to save more money than what they spent on that advice. I've shared with you guys before, I did it with a tax attorney and got into a course, and it cost me $25,000, but it was worth it for the savings in setting up business structures and entities. I saved way more than that back in the day. So well worth it. It's always good to invest in information like that. We're getting information here from Brian for free. It's been about an hour. Brian, we do appreciate you sharing it. And of course, Buck, he's not on right now, for making the original introduction. Dale, for kind of being the guinea pig to go through compliance with you back and forth to take a few weeks. But at the end of the day, we are live. We're set up. Brian's got a phenomenal promo here towards the end of the month of August. So reach out to him. I love the fact that you can, there's the promo on your screen, that you could at least contact him, start the application process, and you don't even have to fund the account up until 90 days. So it's not like you're put under pressure to take advantage of the promo that's on your screen and fund your account now. You could work out those details with him over the course of these next 90 days. So Brian, any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
No, I think I gave a lot of information. It's just a lot to digest, but reach out to me, guys. I look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome. All right, Brian, thanks so much. I appreciate it. We'll be in touch. Hopefully
Okay.
get a bunch of people.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye for now.